the emotions. I hope you all enjoy that. And we're really looking forward to getting all the questions and hearing from the crew. But first, we want to express our gratitude and give a huge thank you to all of the cast members who took part in this film. I want to give a shout out to the people who are present here today. We have Tina Alejo, Marianne Masaka, Ron Miriera, Raquel Redon-Diaz, Jenny Batalones, Teresa Dulalas, Hallelujah, Denise, if you are here, Angelica Cabande. Thank you all so much. And of course, there were many folks who could not be here today, but you heard from in the film, including Tony Grafilo, Janine Lacap, Marty Dulalas, Nancy Canlas, and Rod Lumen. So please give another round of applause for all of our cast members. Thank you all so much. We are now going to transition to the next portion of the evening, a filmmaker panel and audience Q&A. So I'd love to introduce our panelists and have them join us up on the stage. We have our co-directors, Diane Ruiz and Nick Skide. Thank you. Please come on stage as I call your name. We have Faye Darmawi, the film's executive producer and the executive director of the SF Urban Film Fest. We have Joseph Smoot, the film's editor. Please come on stage. And last but certainly not least, we have Rachel Lastimosa, the film's music producer and cultural advisor. Thank you all. And let me all actually get you some waters before we start. Thanks so much, Chris. Give you some space. Oh, it feels nice to sit, folks. All right. So how this is going to work is I'm going to first start off asking our panel a few questions, and then I'll turn the mic over to all of you for all of your questions to our film crew. All right. Collective breather. Thank you all again. Thank you, panelists, for being here. Everyone good? All right. I want to start off with the first question. And this first question I want to direct to Faye first. The question is, what was the inspiration for the documentary and how did it get kicked off?
Everybody, can you hear me? Yes, testing. Okay, hold on, it's not working. Is it working now? Is it working now? It's working now, okay. Thank you so much for the question. There was two sources of inspiration. One is a community inspiration. So that started with the conversation that I was having with Raquel and Rachel, and we co-produced a film screening in 2019. It was called Cultural Vulture or Cultural Resistance. Basically, it was the question around what is the impact of cultural strategy? On the one hand, we can create community. On the other hand, it might instigate gentrification. So what can we do to make sure that cultural strategy was on the side of fortifying the community? And we came up with the concept of story as a claim to place, which is what this film is. And the other inspiration is really a personal inspiration from my personal background. So I'm not Filipina, but I know what it feels like to be invisibilized. I'm a Chinese from Indonesia, and we were a minority and basically a scapegoat. So we did this thing which was kind of crazy. Rachel and I decided to apply for a grant from the Yerba Buena Community Benefits District, but I don't know if you know what those are. So the Yerba Buena Community Benefits District was the district that was created for the property owners around Yerba Buena. So what they do is they actually benefit from Yerba Buena, all the development of Yerba Buena, and of course they also benefited from the destruction of Yerba Buena. wouldn't it be ironic if we got a grant to talk about the destruction of Yerba Buena from the people who actually benefited from Yerba Buena? So we got the grant. So we're like, uh-oh, so we actually have to make the film, and here we are.
Thank you so much, Faye. Rachel, do you have anything to share for this question as well?
I think Faye pretty much said it, but something that has been also a strategy that you saw in the film with the Mint Mall is really celebrating the culture of our community and celebrating the abundance in our community. And I think that this film really highlights the richness that there is here in the South of Market because of the Filipino American community.
Thank you so much, Rachel and Faye. It's great to know about the inspiration behind this and what you all saw on screen here. All right, kicking off to the next question. I'm sure a lot of folks are wondering, there are so many stories that could be told about the South of Market. We want to know, what are some of the themes examined in the film, and why was this story important to tell? I'd first like to hear from Diane.
Hello, can you hear me? Hey, Chantal. So from the beginning, we knew that displacement was going to be a major theme, right? It's the number one issue in South of Market. But we also wanted to make sure that placemaking was also a major theme. The way that the community comes together to build support networks for each other. And it was an honor and privilege to be able to do this film. We did over 40 research interviews, we interviewed 40 different people for the research interviews, as you saw in the credits. We included over a dozen on-camera interviews. So we really tried to tell as many stories as we can through layers of information with cameos of photos. But from the beginning, we knew place and displacement and placemaking were major themes. We also knew that invisibility and visibility was a major theme, because a lot of people don't look at Soma as a neighborhood, and also as a neighborhood of families, multi-generational families. So we really wanted to include that. We did a screening in the fall, and we got feedback from the community as to what we can include based on what we had. And we actually put together. We worked through the pandemic, which was had a lot of challenges, but we put together this film, a majority of it in the past 5 months, what you see. And it was really having Tina and Teresa be interviewed. They really grounded the stories of the closure of FBC and displacement, as well as having Marianne talk about her family, Janine talking about the immigration stories. We really wanted to have a variety of stories of people that live in Soma and what it's like to live here. We've tried to focus on the 1970s, because that's when a lot of the redevelopment happened, and as well as the start of the political organizing in the Filipino community with the Filipino Organizing Committee, which is a story I think a lot of people don't know about. We were really fortunate to include footage that was never before seen, which was by Sam Tagatak. On a lot of that footage from the 1970s, it was actually from a documentary that Sam was doing about Filipinos in South of Market, and he never completed it. So we're able to include it in this film, and it's screened and shown for the very first time. So shout outs to Sam. Unfortunately, he actually passed away last December. So this film is a tribute to his legacy as a filmmaker, as a professor. So we had the 1970s and also wanted to bring it to the 2000s for the 10th course. So it was really challenging because there's so many rich history here, so many organizations. And when we were putting it together, the story, I really tried to think about, what were the stories in the history that affected the main characters that we focused on, who are Marianne, Tina, Teresa, and Janine. And so what were the particular things in the community and the history that we need to know so that we understand their present day struggles?
Next, yes, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much, Diane.
Yeah, I wanted to share something a little bit more personal. So, remember one of the... Sorry, actually my throat started getting dry because of the cold air. Hold on just a second. Yeah, so one of the older clips, Tony Garofalo was saying in the 70s that the housing in Soma are not really desirable because there were rats, there were... That was in the 1970s, but when I moved here with my parents to this building right here, the Mid Mall, we experienced the same thing, right, in 2009. And sadly, a lot of people are still experiencing housing insecurity, undesirable living situations. And that's one of the things we wanted to highlight too, is that we're experiencing the same struggles now. And some of the stories that we shared are very relatable. They're not unique, and that's great, right? In mainstream Hollywood, we see a lot of stories about people reaching the American dream, becoming millionaires, billionaires. Well, that's not really attainable for everyone. But the stories that we told today, a lot of people can relate, including me, even though I'm one of the filmmakers. I can say that Tina's story, Teresa's story, Janine, they've told my story, some of the experiences I've personally had, and I know that a lot of Filipinos, whether you grew up in the Philippines or in the U.S., you have something to connect with in some of the stories that we tell today. And that's what we also want to express, is that we are not alone. It's not just also the Filipinos, but other people of color. The struggles that we experience is not unique to just one specific group of people, but we're all in this together, and we have to fight together in order to preserve our own communities.
Thank you so much, Nix, and thank you for sharing your personal story and, really hitting the point about visibility and invisibility, which was a huge theme in the film. Rachel, do you have anything to add in terms of why was this story important to tell?
I think in terms of South of Market as a place, and not only this hotbed of, it's basically like a war zone for housing, for people, for families to live. And I think something that was really important for us to also tell is the infrastructure that the community has created to support the families and the people that are here. Mainly, having Galing Bata FEC be a part of that through line to also connect the generations and the lineage of culture that is so important for us to hold on to, because it only takes one generation for us to lose this language. It only takes one generation for us to forget our roots and who we are, and everything that has brought us to this point because of colonialism, because of imperialism. We're fighting against all of that. And so I mean, it's so beautiful to be able to see that in the face of government turning their back on us, that we have that spirit of Bayanihan, that we still lift our home up and we lift each other up and we create the services that we need for ourselves and for others.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that beautiful comment. I'm going to now transition to the next question. As you all saw this really powerful documentary, there were definitely some challenges along the way. Joseph, this next question is for you. What were some of the challenges you faced in the process of making this documentary? And what are some of the things you learned that you may not have expected?
Thanks, Chantel. So I'll take that view as a collective view because the filmmaking team embarked on this journey, of course, together as a collective. Some of the challenges were, so I know Faye talked earlier about kind of the original premise for the film as being kind of looking at what happened to Filipinos during redevelopment. And when we first started to research for this documentary, one of the things that we found was that when you start looking at the city records, you start looking at the planning records, you start looking at the redevelopment agency records about redevelopment and who was living here during that time. One of the things you start to see is that redevelopment didn't start in the 70s. We all think about urban renewal as the 70s. It started in the early 50s, which is very interesting. And one of the things that we saw in the film, you all probably saw that Bob Lumen showed pictures of his family in the early 50s. His family was living here. We know that his family was living here. What the redevelopment agency was telling everybody was that Soma was a neighborhood full of winos, single men, mostly white, down on their luck. And what their intention was, as early as the early 1950s, was to make the South of Market a destination neighborhood. They wanted to build a sports stadium here. They wanted to build a convention center here. They wanted to build all kinds of kind of destination, a museum. They wanted to build all kinds of things for people to come and recreate. And what they wanted to do was clear out the undesirables who were living here. And they created a whole narrative around it that made it so that, to generate support for that. So here we are digging for evidence. We knew that there were Filipinos here. We knew that there were even Filipino families here. And we were digging and doing research. And then for a while, for months, we thought that this documentary was literally going to be about us searching for evidence of a community that we knew existed, and we couldn't find any evidence of it because it had been so subverted by the powers that wanted to develop this neighborhood for what we then showed, high-end hotels, a convention center, and all those things. And so that was one of the biggest challenges. Of course, there was COVID. Doing a documentary during COVID is very challenging. You have to interview people on film, on screen, or on camera. They have to be not wearing a mask. You have to be able to film in the community. Those were obvious challenges, but the deep challenges of white supremacy and running up against it through research, through months and months of research, really informed the story and informed our needing to dig deeper and deeper and really rely on the community to come together to produce the evidence, literally produce the evidence that Filipinos are here, Filipino families are here for generations and built this neighborhood. And so that really became kind of a through line of not just of struggle and perseverance, but also showing that, and how do you do this, kind of traveling back and forth through time, of showing that Teresa Dulalas's evictions are no different from the eviction from the I Hotel, for instance. That the eviction of the Filipino Education Center is displacement, just as much as Teresa's evictions or the eviction from the I Hotel. And then also the through line of kind of speculation, of government-enabled speculation that preceded urban renewal, came through urban renewal, and continues today in the struggle for 5M. We showed that scene of the community confronting the planning commission and saying, who are you building for, as literally the youth and family special use district that this community created, the Filipino community created during the Eastern Neighborhoods rezoning, was literally being remapped and reconfigured over the protest of the community that created it in order to create high-end office towers and high-end condo towers. And so the whole through line continues to today. It's just, like the struggle of being able to uncover those stories and then be able to kind of reconstruct a history that's never really been told and never really been captured. It took a couple of years, but yeah, very powerful.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for sharing all of that. And of course, hitting home on why this story was so important for us to tell. I have one last question for our panel. Sorry, just some entertainment for you all on the side here. One last question for our panelists before I will pass the mic over to all of you. I want to hear from everyone here. The last question. What are the main messages you want people to walk away with tonight after watching this film, Sa Amin? I will start with Faye. Or maybe, okay. We will start with Nix. I am just kidding.
We need you. That's what we want to say. The things that we enjoy right now as Filipinos, Filipino Americans, like the Capua Gardens, this did not just pop up out of nowhere. This took many organizations, many organizers, activists to come together to make sure that we have a space like this, especially during the pandemic. We are not just lucky to have the Soma Pilipinas Filipino Cultural Heritage District in such a major city in the United States. This is not born out of luck. This is from decades of organizing. And if we want this to continue on to serve the future generations of Filipinos, Filipino Americans in San Francisco, we need to continue the work. So we need the younger folks to get involved. If you have the privilege to donate, that's definitely most needed. Nonprofit workers are underpaid and overworked. And so we need everyone's help to be able for us to sustain the work that we do.
I think Jenny at the end really summed it up. You know, it's not just a history. You know, the struggle, as Nick said, it continues. It's now, right? What you saw isn't, something in the past. All of the struggles that we experience, it is a through line through history, but we're all part of that collective struggle. One of the things I just recently saw Angela Davis, and one thing that struck me that she said was, hope is a discipline. And so I really, hope that when you see this film, you'll see the hope in the community, see yourselves in the stories, see yourselves in the community, and realize that we're all part of this collective struggle to claim Soma Pilipinas for ourselves. And if you're not familiar with Tagalog, we chose to name it Sa Amin, our place, instead of Sa Atin, because there's actually two forms of our in Tagalog. There's the inclusive and the exclusive, right? It can mean our, like the people on stage, our, or all of us, or like the whole community. And we chose actually the exclusive because this is our place for us, right? And so we hope that we can share this film and that we can help to claim the space that we all deserve.
This one works? Yay. So document everything, right? Write down your stories, interview your grandparents, take pictures, make them into a story, string them into scenes. Yeah, we got iPhones, we got, really easy like Facebook Lives. Save all that. This is documentation because no one else is gonna save our stories. And then use that story to claim your place. To claim your place here. This is your place.
Yes, I think I saw Irina Alejo out here, and she is like, that is the epitome of what needs to be done here in our community, is documenting who we are and giving us shine and putting it up at the walls of SF MoMA, putting it up in books. We claim our own narrative, and we're not gonna let anyone else tell us what our experience is. And on top of that, to the words of Irina's mother, don't try us. I think we're doing a Q&A.
Thank you, panelists, for answering my very perfectly crafted questions for our audience here. We now have about 25 minutes to take some questions from the audience. So I believe is here to pass the mic. So if folks have questions, please, our panel is here to answer them. Any questions? And again, shout out to our ASL team over here. We appreciate you. All right, we have a question right over here.
Hello. Thank you so much for this film. My name is Neil. And I just love that it's a reflection of history, of Filipino history. I myself, as a native San Franciscan whose roots were in the Mission, I know the displacement is all over the city. I guess my question is really for the filmmakers around, obviously displacement isn't also just isolated to Filipino communities, so was there any consideration about all the other communities as well and trying to incorporate those storylines into this larger context of what displacement actually is?
Thank you for your question, Neil.
Thank you. Displacement is real for so many communities in San Francisco. And, we thought about other communities. But the one thing about Soma Pilipinas is it's not that obvious that it's a Filipino community. And you can see why in the documentary, right? Because so much has been torn down. While other communities, have Chinatown, have North Beach, have the Mission, where you can see that the Latinx community there is still there, is still vibrant, but it's definitely still is hemorrhaging people, and so part of the goal of the documentary was also to claim this space, right? Because it's not known to be a Filipino place. And hopefully by sharing that story, we can also, claim physical spaces in Soma and try to create that change to the overall San Francisco narrative. In other work that we do, we definitely cover through People Power Media displacement all throughout the city and the struggles that happen. And we just really thank you for asking that question, because it's a privilege to be able to interview so many people, but it's unfortunate that that is a shared story throughout San Francisco.
I would like to answer that in the sense of Soma Filipinas as a cultural heritage district. That is one of the most sophisticated cultural districts in San Francisco in that David Wu's here, that they combine community planning, housing advocacy, and cultural asset mapping and cultural asset development. So, but the potential is for all cultural districts in San Francisco to create this kind of comprehensive planning expertise, and then all the cultural districts band together, which is basically the footprint of the downtown San Francisco, the Mission, the North, and that would be a powerful force for an anti-displacement strategy.
Thank you so much, Diane and Faye, for answering that question. And for folks who may not be familiar with cultural districts, they were formed formally in response to intensify displacement and gentrification in our city. And while Soma Filipinas was formally established only in 2016, as we've seen here in the film, it's a community that's been here for over 100 years. That's been really woven into the fabric of what this city is, and the culture that folks know the city for. So, you know, the hope I want to also add to is that this call to action that all the folks here shared also extend to the other cultural districts fighting to stay, fighting to claim place. And I hope that also inspires you all to figure out ways to support the other spaces here in the city. Thank you again, Neil, for that question. Great, and we have a question right here. Thank you for being on deck.
Hi, good evening. My name's Mary Travis Allen. I'm actually the advisory board president for the American Indian Cultural District here in San Francisco. And it's not so much a question. I just want to recognize and praise this work that you've done. It's an elevation of people that have been invisible in this city and a part of it. I was born and raised in this city, so I remember everything some 66 years ago, so through the transition. But it is the unification of all people here, all cultural districts, and we've been experiencing that in coming together and supporting each other, the decolonizing the mindset that's here, doing it in the schools. That's so important. I was part of the renaming committee for the schools here, and we all saw where that went. That cannot be allowed to die. We cannot stop the fight for our children, you know, for our grandchildren, for each other, for our communities. Because, you know, and I have to give honor and recognition to the Ramaytush Ohlone people whose land this is all. And they are the evidence of the power that came in to eradicate the people, but they haven't silenced us. We are here. You are here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary, for your testimony and for being here tonight. We really appreciate your presence. See a question in the audience? Thank you, Crystal.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Kate, and I'm an urban planner, and this is important. I'm a resident in Soma, so I feel like it's really important for me to see. My question is, what was it like either to see in other people or maybe to see in yourself people connect with their culture and their community if they felt disconnected before?
It's healing. It's really easy to feel alienated in the United States as a person of color, especially if you're an immigrant. But to know that other people are experiencing the same and not accepting that that's just how it is, it's also very empowering. Because when you just share your story and you say, well, what can we do, right? Sometimes I also get hopeless because it's hard to be hopeful and take action and then nothing happens. But when you see people go through the same thing and then the community rallies behind them, the community empowers them to become activists themselves, like Tina and Teresa and Marianne and Janine, the younger interviewee in the documentary. It's really inspiring. So that's how I felt, being able to hear the stories of other Filipinos in the neighborhood.
If I can add to that as well, what Nick so eloquently spoke of, decolonization is healing. For us to return to ourselves, to really untangle and unravel the violence that has been done to generations and generations of our people, that is healing. And to reconnect to our culture in a way that speaks our own truth is the exact opposite of what colonization has tried to do to our psyche. And so being able to celebrate in the face of that, being able to have brown joy in a place of white supremacy really speaks truth to power.
Okay, I'm going to weigh in on a slightly different take on this. Because what we all just experienced together tonight was that community joy that Nix and Rachel just talked about. But I got to say, for a community that's told that it has no value, for a community that's told that it has no place, being able to go and approach people and say we're making a documentary about that community, it was really hard for a while to get people to say, yeah, I'll talk on camera about my story. It was really hard because people aren't used to talking about their story as something that matters. And so the fact that we're all able to sit here tonight and celebrate that through this film speaks volumes, and it's actually a really powerful thing to be able to bring forward.
Thank you, Kate, for your question, and our panelists. Oh, we have one more answer.
When I see the historical footage like Sam's, it's actually really crazy because like so much historical footage, you only see white people, right? And you just see like Filipinos in their outfits from back in the day, and like, you're just like, oh my God, we were here. Look, you can see it. Like, so that I definitely had so many of those moments. And then when we discovered, the footage of the Soma Bao, that was the original first performance of the Soma Bao, the kids performing that poem, right? Which was written by MC Canlas, who helped organize the teachers, right? And so when we discovered that, we're like, oh my God, like as Faye said, there's such a treasure of material from this community that we were able to discover and have the privilege to share. And when I saw the kids do that, I was like, if those kids can be like so badass, like I can do that. Like, come on, let's do this. Like, it was amazing. It was so inspiring to see the kids. And many of them are here tonight. Years later, we're continuing to work in the community. So it's really is that continuum, which is it's really great to see.
Thank you so much, Diane, and our panelists. We have about 10 minutes left for questions. I see Dawn over here has a question. Shout out to my homie Dawn.
I just wanted to thank you for making this film. It was just so powerful. As I was watching it, I could really get a sense of the whole narrative that you're trying to weave. The historical background, the sense of community, the individual stories were so amazing. And I was learning, and I was getting angry, and I was about to tears, and I was also so inspired by the fight. You know, and I think it's such a strong film in giving people a sense of hope, but also giving people an understanding of the obstacles that we face, and that our only choice is really to fight. So, thank you for making this film. My question is, how do we get this out there into our communities to educate this whole city about what's going on?
Oh, thank you for that. We need $20,000. Please, I'm actually very serious because it's a very expensive proposition to make this film. And even though it's in this really great shape, we actually need to take it to another level to be able to distribute it at a festival level. So if you could please contribute to our crowdfunding campaign. But also, just to talk about it. Just talk about it with your friends. Like, hey, I went to this thing, and did you know that there are Filipinos here for 100 years in Soma? And then walk around Soma, and then you're like, oh my God, this is a Filipino thing, and that street is Lapu-Lapu. Lapu-Lapu, I think that's a Tagalog name from somebody in the Philippines. And then you see, wait, what? Bindlestiff? What? There's a Filipino theater? I mean, just start to talk about what you experienced tonight, so that we'll get the story out before the film can be distributed more widely. Oh yeah, we have more screenings, but that was going to be my closer. Now?
Do any other folks on the panel want to answer that question? It was Faye's question. Thank you, Dawn, for your question. And thank you also for sharing your reaction to the film. I'm a crier, and I almost cried just hearing you talk about how you were going to cry. I always cry, everyone knows. We have a little less than 10 minutes, but of course we still have time for questions and comments and reflections too. Those have been really powerful.
Hi, my name is Claire, and I am a Barrier native, Filipina, and I'm also on the board of Ballet Creative. And so something that kind of came up for me while I was watching this film was this anger that has been bubbling ever since the redistricting that has happened is diluting the Filipino power now that the Soma and the Tenderloin are in separate districts. And so I'm really curious how we can continue to band together to fight and to elevate these stories. And I just want to also extend my gratitude for lifting this up in such a way that blends both like the history of planning and racism and all of those things. So I just want to know how we can continue to band together.
All right, just a quick thought on politics. So, having worked in City Hall, I will say one thing is that I don't care where the district lines are. You just find out who your representative is and make sure they don't stop hearing what you got to say. So it's the same story, just a different person who's got to carry it and carry your message. So no, but seriously, it really is important to know how the redistricting does impact communities. But really on the ground, the day-to-day is really what Faye was just talking about, which is we just got to keep these stories alive. We have to keep learning about what the community is and what it means. Because, you know, our politicians, honestly, they come and go. It doesn't matter what the district lines are. Even if the district lines stayed the same, most politicians are on their own 4-year calendar. They're looking for other jobs all the time. They're looking for their own power. What we need is to be building that consistent strength and analysis of who is this community? Where did we come from? Because one of the things that we discovered when we were making the film is there are so many myths out there because we had been told so many different things. Well, the I-Hotel happened. Maybe Filipinos moved to South of Market after the I-Hotel fell. I don't know. There's like some history that people like kept talking about. But when you actually unearth it and then put it together into a story like this, it's really powerful because now it's your story, you own it, right? It doesn't matter who the politician who comes in, you can tell them, this is our community, and I know where it came from, and I know what our struggle is, and you, my representative, are going to be accountable to our struggle, right? And that's the important thing, is to use this for organizing, for awareness, for understanding who we are as a community, and for continuing to bring that forward into advocacy and growing the strength of understanding who we are and what we need as a community. And then as the politicians change, you just make sure that they're held accountable to the community because we're the ones who are staying here. But no, whoever they are and whatever job they're going for, we're the ones who are staying here and we're the ones who are going to hold them accountable for the long term.
In our other work through People Power Media, we've created a coalition called Race and Equity and All Planning Coalition, the REP Coalition. And if you look at the REP-SF website, you can see all of the organizations throughout the city that are grassroots organizations that are supporting communities, people of color, and that are working towards equity in land use and housing affordability. So I encourage you to join those organizations like SOMCAN, the cultural districts are part of it, including the American Indian Cultural District, the Kayabitibato Cultural District. So join those organizations, organize within your community, and that's how we're gonna win. If you're still here through this cold, you can join a community. You got the grit. Thank you.
I was about to say thank you. I am shivering up here. So I really appreciate you all. I think we have time for one last question. And I see Desi over here. I'm going to pass it to you through Crystal.
Hi everyone. Ooh, it's loud. Hi, I'm Desi. So the film is really kind of looking back and studying the repercussions of past bad decisions. But with the pandemic, a lot of things have been reset. Developments kind of frozen. Big developments that have sprouted out or sprouted up are now empty. I want to hear from the panelists, what do you think is the future of San Francisco in 5 years, 10 years, or maybe even 15 years?
The future is what we make of it. It's in our children. It's the stories that we pass down. It's what we empower ourselves to create. And too much of what has been said here, what has been said in the film, and we'll see later with the closing too, it's our sheer will and our people power and our love for each other and for our community that will keep us thriving, that will keep us growing, and will allow us to develop in a way that we see fit for ourselves and not for some white guy in an ivory tower to tell us what we need to do for ourselves. So it's my hope that we'll have safe streets for the kids, that the housing insecurity will be obsolete, that suicide ideation will be obsolete in our community, that we will have food security, that we will have services, wraparound services, health care, child care, education for our community, and housing. That's my hope, but it all really relies on us to hold truth to power, to tell our representatives that we're of value and that the resources need to come to us as well.
It's kind of bittersweet for this space right here, right? Because it's supposed to be senior affordable housing, and right now it's this beautiful community space that Desi has such a big hand in creating. And why does it have to be either or? You know, we need more space for all of the things that we need in this community, right? We need more of this. We need more senior affordable housing. You know, we can't just, you know, keep getting the scraps, right? We need more space for ourselves, and I think that's what we need to do is claim more space for our community and to have that will to fight for it and to keep, you know, these beautiful spaces for each other.
Thank you, Desi, for your question, and thank you, panelists. We have
One more closing. I mean, really, there's going to have to be a reset. I mean, our entire country needs to be reset. We have to make sure that we follow our heart, that we take care of ourselves, that this city comes back to its soul, that we create a city that is in love with itself, that loves each other, and we have to fight for that. Just like Jeannie said, we have to fight for the right to the city.
All right. Thank you all for your questions. Are there any last minute questions that folks are burning to ask? I see one more. Let's do one more. I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see if people are raising their hands. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for a beautiful film. I just have one big question, which is, what are you going to do next? There's so many stories here, and everyone knows. I mean, whether it's jobs, whether it's the services, whether it's all these different fights, it just needs to be told and carried on. And you know, I really love what you've done, and I hope that we can all be behind you and doing more and getting money from Yerba Buena or whoever. There are 13 different redevelopment areas in Soma that you should get money from. But first of all, thank you so much.
Thank you for that question. I want to make sure that you guys know that there's actually a website, saaminfilm.com, and eventually when we raise more money, that website will become an archive. So I don't know if Raquel knows this, but that's going to be on her to-do list. Is that we will raise money to start collecting more home movies, more archival film, more photographs, and that saaminfilm.com website will become your archive, and that will also become a document where you can leverage the power of story as a political tool.
Thank you, Faye. We have one last question here from Teresa, one of our amazing cast members in the film.
Hey, Teresa.
It's actually, may I say something to an answer to what Desi's question was, to what we want to see here in 5 to 10 years, right? So actually, I want to say thank you to Desi. So what I really want to visualize is we will have a high school here. We will have more Filipino-owned businesses, okay? So, you know, we shouldn't be afraid. Just like Tina and many of us parents here, we want to let you guys know, never be afraid. Never give up, okay? It's really important that, you know, that we be actually known that this is Soma Pilipinas. Because I have many people when I talk to them and ask me, where do you live? And I say, I live in Soma Pilipinas. And they say, where's that? So please help us, whoever is here, please help us put on the map of San Francisco that there is such a place as Soma Pilipinas. Okay?
Thank you so much, Teresa. I think that is a very powerful note for us to end on for this segment. Thank you to the audience for your questions, and please give it up for our panelists. Thank you all so much. Thanks for rocking with us in the cold, y'all. I know it's cold. I am freezing, and you all look so warm from here. I think, Faye, we are just going to close off with your closing sentence.
Yes, thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us and supporting the film. There's 3 more screenings, so you can tell your friends. There's one going to be online on the 14th. There's going to be one at YBCA on the 17th, and then there's going to be one at Roxy on the 21st. So thank you so much, and please donate to the crowdfunding campaign.